It's Q&A time with Locked On Colts, and should the Colts go after an older but proven pass rusher or a younger player with more upside in free agency? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network around. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and I'm joined, as always, by Jake Arthur, the boots on the ground over at Round Table Sports. We're back at you guys with a big Q&A episode. You guys had hundreds of questions for us all about free agency, the current Colts roster, and also draft questions as well. So we're going to get to as many as we can today. And if we don't get to them all, we're going to try to get to even more with tomorrow's episode. So without further ado, Jake, let's jump into it. And shocker, one of these questions about Trey Hendrickson. I don't think we've ever talked about Trey Hendrickson on this. We haven't titled entire episodes about Hendrickson. We'll see if we even title this episode off of Trey Hendrickson, because it does work in this Indianapolis market. But we have an insider from the Everydayers Club asking us, does it make sense to go for Trey Hendrickson given his age and cost? I'll throw it to you here first, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this one a little bit. Now that he's a free agent, he'll be hitting free agency and it's not a trade situation. That certainly makes it more doable. I don't think anyone wanted to give up like a first round pick last year or like whatever the draft trade compensation would be. That mixed with him needing nearly $30 million, that was going to be a lot. But now it's just the money. So if you can get this guy for anywhere in the ballpark of, like, I would say around 20 mil, you might have to go closer to 25, but there's worse moves they could make. I wish he had a healthy year last year. That's kind of another thing that hangs me up, is a 31-year-old guy coming off a year in which his season was done by Halloween. And you're going to have to pay him north of 20 million. There's risk involved in that, but he's going to improve your pass rush no matter what. So does money matter?
If he plays, he would improve your pass rush.
Well, sure. I mean, they're going to have to make sure he checks out medically if they're going to give him money. But I mean, they need it at this point. They need pass rush. Quit messing around with, like, I feel like with Ballard, the ones that have really hit are like the free agent pass rushers, really. Justin Houston, Danico Autry, Samson Ebukam. Like, it's tough for him to evaluate guys coming through the draft. Like, this guy's productive, just go ahead and do it. Because, again, you just need pass rush help so bad.
How many years on that contract before you'd be out on?
No more than two.
Okay. So if we wanted 3 by 20 something, like 3 by 22 so 3 for 66 million, you would say no?
If there was a hard out going into that third year, like where there was very little dead cap, then fine, because that's how the league plays it. Like,
that's true.
But if there was a lot of guaranteed money and dead cap tied into that third year, I would not be into that.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I'm just kind of a net neutral on going after Trey Hendrickson. I don't think it fits the way that Lou Anarumo wants to play this defense. I think he's very into the Viking style. And you look at the type of defensive ends that the Vikings have with Grenard and Dallas Turner and Van Ginkel. And they're these guys who are very effective in their blitz-heavy scheme. They can drop in coverage. They can be like outside linebacker, defensive end hybrid types.
Makes sense.
Trey Hendrickson, I don't love the fit, even though he was great with Lou in Cincinnati. I think he'd be good with Lou again. I just think I'd rather just invest as much as possible into younger, athletic, like speedier pass rushers. But if they got Hendrickson, like you said, Jake, I think he'd be productive. So I'm not going to sit here and cry about potentially getting a very good pass rusher. I'm just kind of more neutral on it. Now, the one I'm not neutral on, though, is this next one. We got a question from Tyler Money, I believe, on Facebook. And he says, if we don't land Trey Hendrickson, do you think Bradley Chubb would be a good set? And do you think he would work well with our defense? I'm going to say real quick before I kick it to you, Jake, I think he'd be horrible with this defense because he wasn't even good last year. Like, I know he had 8.5 sacks, I think, for the Dolphins, but he was like outside the top 40 in pass rush win rate. I think his win rate was below Kwity Paye's last season. He's 30 years old. He's had some major injuries in recent years. Like his knees are busted at this point. No chance. No chance. Could you imagine dropping him into coverage in this scheme? Like we saw, like how the Colts dropped Ebukam into coverage a couple times last year. Think of that, but worse. I'm so out on Bradley Chubb in this defense in particular. But what are your thoughts, Jake, before I flood your mind with those ones?
Yeah, I mean, you make good points there. For me, he's someone where it would have to be at the right price.
Yeah.
But that's the problem is, he just got cut from where he was going to make 30 million. How much of a pay cut do you think he wants to take? Now he's going to have to take one regardless of where he goes. No one's going to give him premier money. But if he's willing to take like a prove it year kind of deal, then okay. But yeah, I'm more for the younger guys with upside. Guys who've been productive in small pockets but haven't been able to be starters because they're in a crowded room, guys like that. But yeah, I'm not 1,000,000% out on Chubb, but it cannot be for anything expensive.
Yeah, I would even say if the money were even, say Boy Mafe and Chubb were both making like for Mafe it'd be like 3 years, 15 million per year, and with Chubb 1 year, 15 million per year, I'd prefer Boy Mafe. I think that I would take the swing on the upside with the younger player who's coming off of as a rotational player, a very productive season with the Seahawks. I would take it over Chubb, even if he had fewer sacks, just because I think he fits the scheme so much better. And I'd like to bank on a 27-year-old rather than a 30-year-old with bad knees.
Yeah, and you might have him for that 3 years. I mean, the
Right.
Colts usually let that contract ride as long as you don't fall off a cliff by the end of it.
Yeah, well, it depends if Ballard is still here by the end of that, but that would be another question for another day. Speaking of cut candidates, though, we just talked about Bradley Chubb, who I believe he was released like yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
What cut candidates are you keeping an eye on for Indy to target? I have my eyes on Bobby Okereke. It'd be nice to bring him back for the nostalgia. I think he'd also be able to do everything Z and Pratt could do as well. And that was from Trevor over on Twitter. Bobby Okereke is a good one to start with, but Jake, do you have some other guys that you were looking at?
Yep. So Okereke is obviously a good one. That's usually one of the first ones that comes to mind. So for this, I went over to The Athletic, actually just put out a piece where each of their beat writers, tossed up one person who's most likely to be cut. So two of them really, really jumped out. Rashawn Gary from the Packers. Now, I know he faded in the back half of last year, but I've seen Rashawn Gary play pretty good football recently. So if he has a reasonable price tag on him and gets cut, I would be super into that. Uchenna Nwosu from Seattle, the other end of Boye Mafe, that's, you kind of can put them on a somewhat even plane a little bit. Bryce Huff in San Fran, that's one where he just fully did not meet expectations with that free agent deal. Fell short there. So you would have to be really confident in identifying what went wrong and that he would fit in your program. But just the good news overall is that there are a few, I would say, proven pass rushers that could be on the chopping block.
Yeah, just for proper context, because I read the same article as you there, Jake, but just for a little bit of context on Uchenna Nwosu, for that exercise, each athletic writer had to pick one. The Seahawks have like 90 million in cap space. They have no reason to cut Nwosu unless it's to make room for Boy Mafe and like a bigger role for Mafe to come back. So I don't expect Nwosu to hit. I would love Nwosu. I think Nwosu is like the perfect fit if he were to hit, but I don't expect him to be available for the Colts. But those are some good shout outs there. Tremaine Edmonds was another rumored guy, the linebacker from Chicago, making a ton of money, only 27 still. I think he's been in the league for 8 years and he's only 27 years old. Came into the league at like 19. So that's why he's still pretty young. Had 4 interceptions, I think 2 forced fumbles last season. So I think he'd be a really intriguing option. He'd probably be the second highest paid linebacker on the open market if he hit. BJ Hill, the defensive tackle from Cincinnati, could be a casualty there. Lou Anarumo connection, obviously, could kind of take that rotational defensive tackle spot. And then backup quarterbacks, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins. If their markets aren't there for a starting job, I think coming to work with Shane Steichen as a veteran backup behind Daniel Jones would be pretty intriguing for those players. So I think there are some options that, if they're cut, could make this free agent class a little bit better than what some people are calling like the worst free agent class ever. I think it could be pretty good by the end of it.
Yeah, if you're looking for a bunch of splashes, it's not great, but good teams don't go for making splashes every year. They go to fill holes that need to be plugged immediately so they can fortify their roster with the draft. And there's plenty out there for the Colts to be able to plug some of those holes. Like, I'm not discouraged by this free agent class from a Colts perspective. And you mentioned Geno Smith. I believe he's played for Steichen before with the Chargers, so a little familiarity. I'm going to go verify that, but I feel like
I'm
it's
gonna
going to have
say Geno's played for like 15 teams, so
he was with the
maybe.
Chargers, and I think he and Shane crossed paths before.
Okay, so you can verify that when we
I'm on
get
it
back
now.
here. But coming up, guys, we're going to talk about some current Colts. You guys had some roster questions about what the Colts could do in-house. We're going to talk about that here in just a second.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. We were answering your questions that you guys submitted to us through socials. And again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already checked it out, the club is growing. Join our Everydayer Club now. That means you get ad-free audio for us. You get an invite to our members-only Discord channel where we got tons of questions for this show. Pretty much every week or two when we put out for Q&A, we always prioritize people from the Everydayer Club as well. So make sure to join that. That's at lockedoncolts.supercast.com. So let's go ahead and dive into these questions real quick. Zach, I checked that out during that ad hit. Geno Smith, Shane Steichen, 2018. Steichen was his QB coach with the Chargers.
Look at you.
So,
Look at you. Look at that shout right there.
That's right. The NFL is all about connections, man. All right, so let's move on to this next one here. This is from Kay on Twitter. How aggressive do you expect Chris Ballard to be this offseason? Last year, he used he used trades and free agency more than ever, basically to make happen what he needed to. Do you expect more or about the same this year as last year?
I don't think there's going to be as many like huge splashes. I mean, he made 3 big splashes last offseason, right? With Mooney Ward, with Cam Bynum, and then the Daniel Jones one ended up being their starting quarterback. So 3 pretty big splashes in free agency, and then he was kind of quiet from there. I think he is going to be pretty aggressive when it comes to edge rusher. Like, I think they'll make a play for Trey Hendrickson. And even if that doesn't work, I think, guys like Jalen Phillips, Boy Mafe, like we've mentioned, Arnold Ebiketie, I think they're going to make plays for those guys and try to upgrade that edge rush room. But I don't think it's going to be like as splashy as last offseason. I think it will be active. I think they will add talent to this roster, especially in that front 7. But I don't think you're going to see like, what was it? Bynum and Ward were almost $40 million per year on average in those 2 big contracts. And then Jones was an $18 million contract as well. I don't think it's going to be like 3 $15+ million contracts handed out, but I think we might see a handful, like one $10+ million contract plus a handful of ones that get close to that. I think that could be a pretty active and accurate offseason for Chris Ballard. I just don't think they have the money to be as splashy this year, but they'll certainly move some things around and make room to upgrade that front 7 on defense.
Yeah, I think it may resemble like 2023's offseason a little more. Like, I do expect they'll probably bring in at least one expensive outside guy. But Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce are going to be very expensive in their own right. I know people don't like to hear like the Colts did do something expensive, their own guy, but like those guys are going to be expensive.
Right.
Again, I do think they'll probably bring in at least one outside guy that's like at least $15+ million per year. Like, it just feels like that could be a splash that they make there. outside of that, probably, maybe a few guys under 10, like north of 5, but under 10, your Ibikiti types, like you had just mentioned, just because they really need guys. But I don't think they have just this huge surplus money to throw around like they did last year. As far as like trades and stuff go, that nothing to the impact of the Sauce Gardner trade, but I do think it's a little splashy to take a well-established player on your team and be okay with trading them away, which we might see happen a time or two.
Yeah,
to me,
negative
that's kind
splashy.
of a splash.
Yeah, it might be like negative splashy because you're losing a player off your team. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see a Richardson trade at some point and potentially a Michael Pittman Jr. trade, which actually kind of parlays us into our next question here, which is when would we expect to hear about some of the below decisions? Mooney Ward's retirement, Jones and Pierce contract decisions, the Pittman solution, and the Anthony Richardson trade, potential trade, I guess we should say. And that's from Mo over on Twitter. Jake, you've been more of a beat writer in your career, so you're probably a little bit better with the deadlines, but I'll be real quick with my guesses here. Mooney, it could be any time between now and September. I have no clue. I mean, I think ideally he has a decision before training camp, but we'll see with that one. Jones and Pierce, I think when it comes to Jones, that could take closer to free agency, but I think we see like before the end of the franchise tag deadline for both of these guys, I think we'll see a resolution on both of them. Richardson trade could go all the way until August as well, because that's when teams are most desperate for quarterbacks. So we could see the Colts take that pretty far. I think they want to get something done sooner rather than later with that, but we could see Pittman solution. I think up until like the day before free agency officially starts is when you'll see some traction there at the latest. I could see like the week before free agency starting with that. But what are your thoughts there, Jake?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, with the Mooney retirement decision, he did say he's basically said he feels he needs to tell them soon. So I think in a perfect world, by the time we're talking to Chris Ballard next week at the combine, he would have some sort of answer. But they gave Mooney a lot of space to take care of whatever he needed to last year. He spent like most of the offseason with family and everything. You know what I mean? So he's someone they're kind of making a lot of concessions for. So while I think we would love to hear something definitive from Chris Ballard next week, I don't know that we will yet. Like you said, it could go through the offseason. Who knows? Like that seems like a nightmare scenario because he's kind of an important player. If he's not going to be around, you need to know about that. But it's hard to tell. Jones and Pierce, it feels like they should be like, don't you just feel confident they've already got something unofficial with Jones? Like if they feel very, very confident that this thing should be done.
Yeah, I think they're like sniffing the finish line, I think, with a deal there, I think.
Yeah, so the it's the 9th through 11th, March 9th through 11th is the tampering period. I'd expect probably both guys within like 48 hours before that hits to come out. Because I don't think they want Jones. I think they're confident it doesn't matter, but I don't think they want Pierce even getting close to negotiations with another team.
Well, they'll have a solution on at least one of them by March 3rd, because that's the franchise tag deadline. They'll tag one of the two guys.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, probably Pierce if it came down to it, but they'll tag one of the two guys for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely say more likely Pierce as well. Pittman's solution, you see a lot of times with veterans, they let you go with time to go before free agency, just so you're not in the crowd. And like you kind of have the market to yourself a little bit. So if they were going to like trade him or even release him, I would expect it to come sooner rather than later in the next couple weeks. But I just still feel like they want to try every avenue possible to work out an extension with him so that they don't have to get rid of him, Probably push that money elsewhere. I just think that's how they operate. And Pittman is just kind of a locker room pillar player. So I just think they want to take everything and within them not to have to get rid of him. And Anthony, that one's tough. It does feel like more of a free agent kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or just pre-draft. If they're going to get some sort of compensation for him, I would think they would like for it to be done before the draft so they can use that. And again, but as we know, quarterback trades are always tricky. So like if it goes into July or so in training camp time, that's possible. I know these are very broad answers, but like the NFL, it's hard to stick things down to like definitives.
I will say, ideally with Richardson, I think they don't want him in spring or summer camps at this point.
Because Riley Leonard would get those snaps, which
Right.
whoever their backup's going to be, they would want that person.
I think they would want the resolution prior to the draft, but we'll see. We'll see if they want to hold on and try to make teams more desperate, but we'll see. But I think a resolution will certainly come at some point with that. But coming up, guys, we have a lot of draft questions from y'all, and we're a bunch of draft nerds here on Locked On Colts, so we're excited to get to it. We're going to dive into a couple more of your draft questions to close out today's Q&A episode in just a second.
Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, and location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate falls into your lap. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all those boxes you're looking for. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get you your job, the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. So here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, and the whole experience all wrapped up. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make that deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, but you can also send you to the NBA Finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on NBA Future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we are back to close out today's Q&A episode. We appreciate all of you guys sending all your questions in. And if you haven't heard your question yet, don't worry, we'll have another Q&A episode tomorrow to round out all the other questions that we were sent. We got a ton of them, so that's why we have to spread them out a little bit here. But Jay, getting into some draft questions, because again, we're draft nerds at the end of the day. We love diving into these, even as we are still picking up our knowledge on this 2026 NFL draft class. But our first question here from the Everydayer Club, should we expect an all defensive draft picks class this year, or just defensive heavy with maybe one or two offensive picks? I'll go on a limb and say, if they have 8 or 9 picks, I think we could still see like 3 of them on offense. I still think that there's room to add on the offensive line, from offensive tackle to interior offensive line. Tight end depth is a little bit up in the air this offseason. And then certainly a big one, Jake, that we've talked about is wide receiver. If Michael Pittman Jr. is not back, or even if Pittman Jr. is back, they could still use a receiver at some point to replace that bottom of the depth chart void left by A.D. Mitchell being traded away. So while I do think that this draft is going to be heavy on defense, I don't think it's going to be like all 8 to 9 picks are going to be used on defense. I think we still will see a good dose of them on offense as well.
Yeah, I think they would like it to be mostly defense, but no team would ever set out to stack their board that way to where it's like we're only going defense. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's a couple things they want to check off their list. And, that's probably going to come through the draft because those are even cheaper contracts than what free agency would be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then a next question here from James Rock on Twitter. Outside of quarterback, which I guess he doesn't believe in Daniel Jones, I'm guessing with this question. What position is a must draft this year? And also, is there any good linebackers in free agency? So kind of a free agent question with that as well. But in terms of what position is a must draft, we kind of have to see how it all comes through in free agency and what the needs are going to the draft. I will say I'm of the opinion, personally, this is just my personal opinion, I think you need to draft an offensive tackle in every single class at some point. Just keep adding to the offensive tackle or at least interior offensive line. Like, you need offensive line in every single draft just in case. You never know what's going to happen, and depth gets tested quite a bit. So I will say must draft every year, offensive line. But I think adding another young linebacker in the draft is going to be a must. I don't care if it's round 2 or round 7, but I think just adding a linebacker in what seems to be a pretty good class of linebackers, just to add another young player that the coaching staff agrees on at that position, I think would be pretty big for this team.
Yeah, I think a linebacker is a must, especially with Ballard's hit rate there. And as long as they add yet another draft pick outside of the comp picks, we already are accounting for that. I'd go so far as to say I'd like to see 3 draft picks on the defensive line.
Yeah.
Like, I think they got to do it. And
you
like
want
you
to
said,
see 3 Ballard edge picks? Jake, I don't
no,
know about all that.
I said defensive line. That means tackle as well.
Okay.
Well, that's your GM. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
He doesn't hit, but like you got to keep trying. Like,
he's like Charlie Brown with the football with was it Lucy or whatever? Like, he never actually makes contact with the football, but he's gonna keep trying to kick at it. That's kind of Chris Ballard with edge rusher at this point.
Here's the thing, though. It might be a personal curse for him.
Yeah.
Because not every edge rusher he goes for is the same. Like, he went for his old bendy high upside guys. He got Latu. Tyquan Lewis wasn't necessarily of that cloth. Tua Maloa wasn't of that cloth. Just pay. Like, he's not everyone he gets is the same. They just don't.
No, he's taken projects from Ture and Banagu, who are pure projects, and Kwity Paye as well. He's taken inside out versatility guys with Tyquan and Dio. He's taken productive players like Latu, and I think Latu is the best of the bunch still. So I mean, I'm not down on him, but like, it's all kind of resulted in the same thing, which is super funny. But in terms of answering the second part of that question about free agent linebackers, I think more so when the cuts come through at linebacker, like Okereke or Tremaine Edmonds, it would get a lot better. Devin Lloyd would be your splurge signing. I'd prefer the splurge signing to be on the D line at defensive end. But if the DN class just doesn't live up to what they want, Devin Lloyd sitting out there, I wouldn't hate that. Again, $20-something million for a linebacker when you can't rush the passer would be a little bit much for me. But I think Lloyd is a very good linebacker. So there are a handful of linebackers in free agency that could make some sense. Let's close it out with this one more question here from Lancer on Twitter. Jake, do you think we draft a linebacker or secondary help first? I could go either way with this because it is a really good linebacker class. I'm kind of really intrigued by the potential of adding a safety high, though, because I think there are some really good safety prospects in that like round 2 range. It would really just depend on how the board fell, because like, look, man, Josiah Trotter's there at 47. You know me, I'm all about Josiah Trotter, but it would really just depend on how the board fell. I don't think I would go into it expecting one or other. I think Ballard would value a safety or a corner before a linebacker high, but
probably
we're at the point where they need linebacker help enough to where they might take one in the top 50 if they like a guy enough. So I think positionally, I think Ballard would value secondary, but it might end up being linebacker in this draft.
Yeah, I think they have to do so much work at linebacker, and it's deeper. I think, like, not that defensive back isn't decently deep in this class, but linebacker is real deep through the first like 3 rounds, I would say. So there's a good chance they have like a top 25 player on their board available to them right there in the second round where they're going. And, Trotter, Golday, Lewis, David. Like there's a bunch of guys that could be available to them that could be immediate instant impact guys for them. But yeah, I mean, safety, I think corner, I think, God, to them is probably like the second most important position on the defense after an edge rusher, just because we saw how many resources they poured into corner. And I wonder how many corners is too many corners, because if you look at last year, you could draft all corners. They might all play this year. You know what I mean? Like, that's tough. I think just because of the positional depth, though, I would say linebacker, but I do think they value defensive back probably a little higher.
Yeah, and look, linebacker I think is at a pretty good place in this draft too, where even on day 3, like there's some talk that Jacob Rodriguez could fall to day 3. I don't believe that, but it could happen. Aiden Fisher on day 3, Gangly Gentry from USC could be there on day 3. Like
He's
there
a
are
Demogorgon, thank you.
Yeah, whatever you want to call them, whatever. Gangly, the praying mantis, Gentry. Yeah, there's a lot of those dudes on day. Harold Perkins, whatever, the weapon Harold Perkins on day 3 as well. Like there are some intriguing linebackers all from top to bottom, and I just feel like Ballard has this confidence. Like they hit on each. Like I know he's not still here, but they hit on EJ Speed out of Tarleton State, who was like a quarterback wide receiver. So I feel like in back of his mind, he might be like, I can find a linebacker anywhere, but I need a corner. I need a safety, So I wonder if he waits a little bit on linebacker, but maybe that's a discussion for another day. That's all we have for today, though. We are running late on time, guys. So thanks again for tuning in today to Locked On Colts. We'll be back yet again tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed to our show so you get all the latest episodes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. And if you never miss an episode, then remember the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Colts audio ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and much more. You also probably heard it throughout this episode that you kind of get priority in these Q&A episodes if you're in that Everydayer Club. So make sure you are joining at least for that part of it so you can hear your name called out, or at least hear that you're through the Everydayer program on the show. So head to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join the club or follow the link in our show notes right now. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys back here yet again tomorrow afternoon.